Israeli troops advance into Lebanon. Targeted ground offensive launched. Hezbollah roars, "We are ready." Hezbollah fires missile at Mossad headquarters. Tensions soar in Middle East. Israel expands theatre of war.
And this is the biggest escalation following the killing of the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah a few days ago in southern Lebanon. After the airstrikes, the Israeli military's ground forces are now moving into southern Lebanon in a limited manner in what can only mean another invasion of at least one part of the country. It's not something Israel has not done before. It's happened on 3 previous occasions. But what does it mean this particular time, and could it actually trigger an even wider conflict, as many experts are suggesting? I'm Shiv. I'm going to be decoding the latest between Israel and Lebanon right here on 5 Live. And we are starting with some breaking news coming in from the Israel-Lebanon war front. The ground offensive, we can confirm, has already begun. Israeli troops and tanks are moving in a limited manner into southern Lebanon as we speak. We'll have some images for you up on the screen in just a moment. Hezbollah, the group backed by Iran that is part of the Lebanese political system that just lost its leader to an airstrike, Hassan Nasrallah, has now vowed revenge on Israel. Hezbollah has announced what it calls Operation Revenge for its terrorist leader Hassan Nasrallah. Hezbollah has also has claimed to have targeted the Mossad headquarters in Israel's capital of Tel Aviv. They've said they've launched a missile attack on the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel. So the ground offensive has begun. The Hezbollah has said, "We are ready." The Hezbollah has said Operation Revenge is in full swing, and they are now trying to target the Mossad headquarters in Israel's capital. That's the latest that we're hearing at this point of time.
The Israel Defense Forces is conducting limited and targeted raids along Israel's northern border against the threat Hezbollah poses to civilians in northern Israel. These localized ground raids will target Hezbollah strongholds that threaten Israeli towns, kibbutzim, and communities along our border.
And here's the very latest in this rapidly developing story. Remember, it's over the last 12 hours that this escalation is taking place. The airstrikes are still happening from Israel's side. But take a look at the latest we're getting. The Hezbollah has said it has used new Fadi 4 missiles to attack the Tel Aviv headquarters of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency and the Glilot military base, where the army's intelligence unit is headquartered on the outskirts of the Israeli capital. These are pictures from Tel Aviv earlier today. Meanwhile, eyewitness videos have captured the aftermath of Israeli airstrikes in the Dahiyeh suburb of the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Video on social media shows the suburb has been emptied of its residents after a massive Israeli air campaign 2 days ago, and they continue even now. This is what a suburb of Beirut looks like right now. An Israeli ambulance service published videos and stills from a site where a rocket hit a central Israeli highway, wounding 1 man and damaging the road. The rocket hit after sirens blared across central Israel. Intercepting missiles could be seen overhead. Explaining the reason for the ground incursion, an Israeli military spokesperson alleges that Hezbollah had turned villages across its southern border into bases ready to launch attacks into Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces said it will not allow a repeat of the October 7th situation on any of its borders. Lebanon lies directly to Israel's north. At least 13 Palestinians, meanwhile, were killed in Nusayrat camp in Gaza following an Israeli airstrike late on Monday. Remember, strikes continue in Gaza as well. Another strike on a school sheltering displaced Palestinian families in the Tufa neighborhood killed at least 7 people. This is one of the world's biggest humanitarian crises. Now, the Israeli military last night, like I said, began a long-anticipated ground operation into southern Lebanon. Now, remember, the Hezbollah, the Iran-backed terrorist group that operates in Lebanon, is also part of the Lebanese political system, and they have positions, military positions, in the southern Lebanon area, very close to the northern border of Israel, from where many of these attacks are actually being mounted. Israeli forces have bombed pro-Hezbollah TV channels and rained rockets on suburbs of Beirut, the Lebanese capital. The Hezbollah, like I just pointed out and I showed you in those videos, has retaliated with rockets and also missiles claimed to have been targeted at the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, announcing Hassan Nasrallah to take revenge for the killing of their chief Hassan Nasrallah. Operation Revenge has been announced by the Hezbollah. Take a look.
Major escalation in the Israel-Hezbollah war. Israel on Tuesday launched its ground offensive in Lebanon through limited tactical foray to destroy Hezbollah bases and strongholds. Israeli forces crossed into Lebanon, marking a significant escalation in an offensive against the Hezbollah after eliminating the militia's entire command structure and leadership. Israel struck Hezbollah's missile launchers near the Beirut airport, opening a new front in the year-long war against the Iranian proxy. Dramatic pictures showed a barrage of rockets and bombs lighting up the night sky in Lebanon as Israel continued its aerial strikes. Israeli warplanes bombed Al-Sirat, a pro-Hezbollah TV channel in Beirut's southern suburb, marking the first targeting of Lebanese media institution. The invasion followed weeks of heavy attacks by Israel against the Hezbollah, including an airstrike that killed the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. The Israeli forces asserted they will not let October 7 genocide be repeated on any of its borders.
We will not let 7th of October happen again on any one of our borders. We will continue doing whatever necessary so that Israeli families can return to their homes in safety and security.
But just as Israel amped up its offensive, Hezbollah retaliated with a rocket barrage against Tel Aviv, declaring Operation Labaika ya Nasrallah, meaning Nasrallah, we are here in Arabic. Amid soaring tensions, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and batted for peace, stating it's crucial to prevent any escalation. With Israel upping the ante against Hezbollah, fears mount that the escalation could plunge the entire West Asian region into an all-out war. With Ashraf Vani in Beirut, Lebanon, Bureau Report, India Today.
This ground operation into southern Lebanon is not the first time by any means that Israel has moved into southern Lebanon in response to provocations from the Hezbollah or other militant groups. Let's take a look at that history. It all began actually in 1978, the first time. This was the first Israeli invasion of Lebanon. The trigger for that invasion was a PLO attack. They'd come via the sea and they'd attacked a bus full of Israelis in Haifa, killing many of them. triggering the first invasion. Then in 1982, 4 years later, the second Israeli invasion of Lebanon happened. This was after PLO attacks from positions in southern Lebanon triggered a second invasion. This lasted a very long time in different forms up till 2000, an 18-year presence on the ground by the Israelis in Lebanon. In 2006 was the third Israeli invasion of Lebanon. The trigger at this time was a Hezbollah cross-border raid into northern Israel, targeting an Israeli army patrol, killing a certain number of soldiers. And finally, we're seeing now in 2024 what could be the precursor to a full-fledged invasion. The military in Israel says, of course, that this is a limited ground operation that's taking place. Some troops have moved in, targeting certain locations of the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, in villages in southern Lebanon, but it is not yet a full-scale ground invasion of the previous 3 times. I want to go across to India Today's Ashraf Wani, the only Indian journalist and certainly the first to arrive on the war zone. He's been traveling between Beirut to the villages in southern Lebanon which have been faced by these airstrikes. The ground operation, as you had correctly first predicted, Ashraf, has begun. We've seen images of troops and vehicles moving into southern Lebanon right now. The Hezbollah has said, bring it on, we are ready. In fact, they've retaliated with missiles and rockets as well. What is the current situation on the ground, Ashraf?
First of all, we should understand on 7th of October 2023, Hezbollah and Hamas launched the operation Aqsa, Tufan Aqsa, which in the English means Flood Aqsa. That was the operation launched by these Iranian proxies and Palestinian fighters to liberate the Masjid Aqsa, the Aqsa Mosque. Now, after the assassination of the Hassan Nasrallah, the new operation, which jointly has been announced by the Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, backed by Iran, has been named as Labbaik Ya Nasrallah. That is an Arabic word. That means we, the fighters of Nasrallah, we are here. They have made the strategies for it. There was already preparation for this plan and the operation by the Hezbollah and its supporters before Israel was thinking about the invasion. And in fact, many times Hezbollah leaders, in fact, himself, Hassan Nasrallah, when he was alive, said that it will be the death of the Israeli soldiers if they enter the southern Lebanon once again, as they did in 2006. Now, during the last 18 years, Hezbollah has not remained same as what the Israel is expecting. You may assassinate the leadership of Hezbollah, but you cannot finish the Hezbollah here in the Lebanon. They are controlling full-fledged border with the northern Israel, and they are already prepared for this kind of invasion. That is why its first reaction we have seen today. First time IDF has accepted that 6 of its missiles have landed in the east of Tel Aviv, which is also the Mossad headquarters. This is a signal from the Hezbollah. In the coming days, Hezbollah is going to escalate these kind of attacks from the southern Lebanon, and also Houthis are going to help them from the Yemen. Shiv.
Ashraf, continue to stay safe and bring us your excellent live reports from the ground. We will keep coming back to you. Once again, please stay safe, and we will continue to show our viewers an absolutely unparalleled view of the war zone via India Today's cameras. Ashraf and his team right there on the ground in Lebanon. I also want to get a perspective in now from Avraham Levine. He's an IDF major in the reserves. He's based currently in the Golan Heights in northern Israel. Avraham, welcome. Thank you for your time. It's a difficult time at this time for Israel, and we can see that there is an escalation now. Limited ground operations have begun. Northern Israel is, of course, on target at this time. Can you give us your sense, as a major in the reserves, of what the current situation is right now? We've seen some images over the last 12 hours, Avraham, of Israeli troops conducting limited, ground operations into southern Lebanon.
Yes, I think Israel changed about 2 weeks ago from defense to offense. And what we're seeing now is currently the peak of this move, and Israel has begun an invasion, in your words. Essentially, I do not think we're looking to reach the Litani or end Hezbollah altogether. I think what IDF goals are, like you said, limited. I think the goals are to remove the immediate and close threats to the border, which will allow Israel to bring our people, the 60,000, maybe a little more people, back to their homes, back to the communities that were evacuated 11 months ago.
Is there a way for the IDF to ensure that that threat is removed, Abraham? Because the Hezbollah has always proven to be able to recuperate, rearm, and bring that threat back to the people of northern Israel.
I think that's the struggle we're in. I think what Israel has been trying to do for the past few weeks is try to avoid the ultimate escalation, try to avoid the ultimate invasion, the ground maneuver in big masses that we're not seeing right now. The number of soldiers going in is much lower than the previous invasions you mentioned in 82 and in 2006, maybe a little closer to what you mentioned about 78, the Litani operation, as we called it then, as a limited move to take over the high ground, the immediate positions, infrastructure, underground and above ground, to allow the immediate threat to be thwarted. And I think what we're seeing right now from Hezbollah is obviously an escalation, because for the past week or two, there's been tens of attacks every 24 hours. Every day, there's tens of attacks into Israel, although less towards Haifa and Tel Aviv, less than we expected.
What would need to be different this time, in your view, Abraham, to ensure that there is some kind of an equilibrium, that the Hezbollah stops its attacks? Because otherwise, even a limited operation or even a limited invasion wouldn't serve the purpose that Israel is looking for.
Well, I think we have to remember that the fact that Israel evacuated all of these communities, not because of the artillery threat that Hezbollah still possesses. I think the main threat that we were suddenly concerned with was the invasion.
Yes.
Just like Hamas did October 7th. And I think that's what we're trying to eliminate and get that option off the table. Once you hold the high ground and you're strong on the border, you eliminate the surprise from the Radwan unit with the new commanders that will keep on coming. But I think that's what we're trying to eliminate. The artillery threat will always be there. We have better protection from the further away artillery. We have shelters. We have sirens. We hear the airplanes above us every day for the past few weeks and actually few months in many ways. But we can live with that. We can bring our kids back to school, bring our people back to their homes.
Do you see, Iran, which has so far operated largely through its proxies, effectively through the Hezbollah as well, do you see Iran at some point in the near future, with this kind of an escalation in southern Lebanon, becoming more directly involved, or do you think it will still only operate using the Houthis and the Hezbollah?
Well, I think Iran has more tools than we usually remember. Hezbollah was the main tool, obviously, the main proxy. You mentioned the Houthis. I live in the Golan Heights, about 4 kilometers from the Syrian border. I'm concerned with the Shiite militias that have been in Syria since the civil war when they joined Assad. I'm concerned with the Houthis. I'm concerned with Hamas in Lebanon and in the south. Till we finish it, the threat is still there. Will Iran retaliate directly? I think they tried that once and it didn't really work. And I think they'll wait. I think they'll reevaluate, because I think they lost way more than they thought in a very short timetable. I think they're still surprised. They're not spontaneous. They'll think about the situation. It's a grassroots approach that will take time. And I think they will take their time before they retaliate directly against Israel.
Final question, Abraham, which is that, even though the Israeli military has fought the Hezbollah for a very long time, technology has changed, weapons have changed. How much more advanced are the Hezbollah now? We understand that they've got missiles, they've got drones, they have a certain degree of technology as well that they're actually bringing to the fight. How different are things now compared to, say, 2006, 2007?
Well, I think both armies have changed, extremely changed.
Yeah.
I think Hezbollah has been focusing on the artillery threat and the Radwan unit, as well as infrastructure. The big surprise that Hamas had for us was the October 7th attack, but also the infrastructure. The underground infrastructure in Gaza is immense. And I can only assume Hezbollah knows about this and has studied our moves and how well Hamas has done with the underground. So I assume Hezbollah invested also in that. And Alma Center wrote several articles about exploding tunnels, long-range strategic tunnels, and short-range tunnels to get closer and closer to the border. That's the threat that we're focused on right now. I think that infrastructure has to be eliminated. And I think Hezbollah has been studying us for the past 11 months, trying to see what we have stored for them. So both armies have improved immensely.
Yes.
I think Hezbollah is still surprised and overwhelmed. And I think we should take the opportunity to reach as much as we can and achieve as much as we can before they recuperate, like you mentioned.
All right, Abraham Levine, appreciate your time and your perspective on this unfolding story. Thank you so much for taking my questions here on India Today. Thank you very much. Now, this escalation that Abraham and I were talking about has taken place over a period of nearly 2 weeks. About 12 days is when this particular escalation is taking place. And let me just break it down for you so it is very, very clear why things have escalated and how they actually did. It started on September the 17th, actually, when thousands of pagers suddenly and in a coordinated manner blew up in people's pockets in southern Lebanon. Most of these pagers allegedly belonging to mid-rung Hezbollah operatives, killing many people and injuring thousands of people. The next day, on September the 18th, there was a second wave of explosions of communication devices, including walkie-talkies in Lebanon. It soon became clear that this was a covert operation mounted by the Israelis to target Hezbollah operatives using their personal devices. September 19th, 3 days later, southern Lebanon, Israel says it struck hundreds of rocket launchers, apparently through airstrikes. On the 20th, Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, saw Israeli airstrikes. A building in a crowded residential suburb was targeted in this particular attack. On the 21st of September, Israel struck 400 Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, especially near the border in villages where there were military targets. This included a great deal of rocket, missile, and other military infrastructure. On the 22nd of April, the Israeli military targeted 290 Hezbollah positions with heavy firing. This was said to have been conducted almost entirely through Israeli artillery positions in northern Israel. On the 23rd of September, Israel conducted the first wave of large-scale airstrikes, about 1,300 in all, on Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. On September the 24th, dozens were reported killed in Israeli airstrikes on the Hezbollah's missile positions that were nestled in residential areas in some areas, in some residential areas of southern Lebanon, including villages. On the 25th of September, the Hezbollah launched a long-range missile towards Tel Aviv. This was some kind of a ballistic missile which they've acquired via Iran's capabilities. Iran, of course, funds and backs the Hezbollah. Israel then deployed additional reserve troops as a result of this escalation. On the 26th, Israel rejected a 21-day ceasefire proposal by the US and France. The next day, that's the 27th of September, Netanyahu claimed Israel is winning and then conducted even more deadly airstrikes in Beirut. On the 28th of September, Israel confirmed the death of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah in an airstrike somewhere in southern Lebanon. Once again, this turned out to be a pivotal point which has now led to the latest spike, which is a limited ground operation which could ramp up into a full-scale invasion depending on how things actually go. Now, there are 4 scenarios before the Israel military now that a ground operation has begun into southern Lebanon. What if the invasion backfires? Anything can happen. This is a very well-armed militia. The Hezbollah almost functions like a quasi-military. Israel's strategy is to eradicate the Hezbollah because a prolonged fight may grow support for this group as it attempts to try and regroup, like you heard Avraham Levine tell me just a moment ago. What about heavy casualties? Significant resistance in pockets, including targets that are being looked at of the Hezbollah, could turn out to be traps for Israeli troops. There could be ambushes of ground forces. They have happened on umpteen occasions in the past, both in Gaza and in southern Lebanon. There could be dissent within Lebanon, fueling dissent against the Hezbollah to create internal conflict. Remember, covert operations, black operations are very much part of how Israel will want to undermine the Hezbollah and maybe try and damage them without even having to fight them or destroy them physically. Creating a buffer zone in southern Lebanon, once again, something that does have a precedent, could drag Israel into a very costly engagement without an exit strategy, and then the United Nations will have to get involved to broker some kind of a ceasefire. So all of the scenarios here are pretty much nightmare scenarios, but as you heard the Israeli expert in the Golan Heights, the attempt right now is to defang the Hezbollah and make sure that they cannot continue to conduct strikes against northern Israel. Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor, is with me. Gaurav and I both had traveled to northern Israel and other parts of the country last year as well, right after the Hamas attack. Gaurav, the limited ground operations, in your view, what are they looking to achieve, beyond the apparent? This is something that Israeli forces have done a number of times. There will be a sense of deja vu as well, that invasion after invasion, ground operation after ground operation, the Hezbollah is still alive and kicking. Its capabilities have only increased. The audacity of its attacks have only increased, Gaurav. So how are things going to be different this time?
Shiv, the current operation of the Israeli Defense Forces are like none in the past. And this time, there's a plan which is being pursued with clinical precision. For example, the pager attacks. The moment those pager attacks happened, Israel had taken out the tactical leadership of Hezbollah, those who received the instructions and then carry them out on ground. So according to reports, over 1,000 Hezbollah fighters were taken out of action, and this was the junior to middle level tactical leadership. Then right from Fuad Shukr to Hassan Nasrallah to Hussein Surur, the entire top leadership of Hezbollah, from their drone chief to their missile chief to their land forces chief to the supreme commander of Hezbollah, the 10 top commanders have been taken out. The command and control structure has been decimated. The communication structure has been decimated. All of this then succeeded by air operations and massive air and artillery operations, where in the southern part of Lebanon, why? To push the Shia militia out of southern Israel. What's the plan? To create a buffer zone east of the Litany River. Do keep this in mind, and this is one name we'll be hearing increasingly in the days and weeks ahead. The UN Resolution 1701 of 2006 very clearly says it's the Litany River that will be the DMZ, will be the buffer zone between the demilitarized zone, which will be manned only by UNIFIL or the United Nations forces or the Lebanese army. Shiv, extremely crucial, a development that's just taken place. The Lebanese armed forces have moved back 5 kilometers from southern Lebanon. What's the signal here? The Lebanese forces are moving back to very clearly send out a signal that this is a war between Israel and Hezbollah. They have nothing to do with it. So it's the creation of a buffer zone. The attempt was made in 2006. The UN resolution mandated it. It hasn't happened. This time Israel intends to do it. Ensure that the Hezbollah as a militia are sent out on the other side of the Litany River, and there is a DMZ of sorts, so that there is no targeting of residents of northern Israel.
Okay, well, this is a story in motion. The escalation is almost definite, and we have a man on the ground in southern Lebanon who will be reporting all of this live for us. Gaurav, thanks very much for getting us that update. We will continue to track this through primetime here on India Today. Well, now that Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Hezbollah, has been killed in a targeted aerial strike by Israel using a bunker buster bomb that actually penetrated 30 meters into the ground in a bunker where he was sitting. The obvious question is, who's going to lead the Hezbollah? People might be wondering, so what if Hassan Nasrallah is gone? I'm sure there's another rung of leadership, or are they dead as well? Watch this report. Here's everything we know about the succession plan in the Hezbollah.
Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, who led the Hezbollah for 32 years, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on Beirut. The death of the Hezbollah leader marks a pivotal moment for the Shia militant group, which has seen much of its top leadership decimated by Israeli operations. With Hezbollah's operation chief Ibrahim Akil and top commander Fuad Shukr also eliminated. Nasrallah's cousin Hashim Saifuddin is now seen as a leading contender to succeed him. Born in 1964 in Deir Qanon al-Nahar, South Lebanon, Saifuddin has been a key figure within Hezbollah. He was designated a terrorist by the United States in 2017. He has led Hezbollah's Executive Council since 1994, overseeing political affairs and serving on the Jihad Council. In 2017, Saudi Arabia also blacklisted Saifuddin. Saifuddin's ties to Iran runs deep. His son is married to Zainab Soleimani, daughter of the late Iranian general Qassim Soleimani. Like Nasrallah, Saifuddin is a cleric and bears a striking resemblance to the former Hezbollah leader. These attributes may work in his favor as Hezbollah looks to name its new chief.
Now the big question ahead of the Hezbollah is that who is going to revive this militia which was created and made a powerful militia by Hassan Nasrallah. It seems that the very close associate of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the first choice of Iran, Hashim Saifuddin, could lead this force and rise from ashes to new beginning. Ashrafani, for India Today in Beirut.
It's the biggest scandal to face the Siddaramaiah government since the Congress party swept to power in April-May last year. The MUDA scam is right at the door of Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and his family, particularly his wife, who was a recipient of a certain amount of land. Well, considering the heat that has been generated over an investigation into the MUDA scam, with the opposition BJP saying Siddaramaiah and his family are corrupt, something very dramatic has happened in the state of Karnataka. Siddaramaiah's wife, Parvati, who stays completely out of the public eye, has in a dramatic flourish said she wishes to return all of this land, which has triggered the question, why return the land at all if there was nothing illegitimate about it? Take a look at this report.
Trouble mounts for Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah. The Lokayukt has initiated its investigation in the Mysore Urban Development Authority land allotment scam. The investigation team inspected the 3.16-acre land that was taken over by MUDA, and 14 sites were allotted to Siddaramaiah's wife Parvati. The Enforcement Directorate filed an Enforcement Case Information Report, the equivalent of an FIR, to probe the Chief Minister, his wife Parvati, the Chief Minister's brother-in-law Mallikarjun Swamy, under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Siddaramaia's wife Parvati has denied the allegations and even offered to return the 14 sites, stating that no plot is more important than her husband's honor.
ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ಅವರ ಪುತ್ರರು ಆದಂಥ MLC ಆದಂಥ ಯತೀಂದ್ರ ಅವರು ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಚೇರಿಗೆ ಭೇಟಿ ನೀಡಿ ಪತ್ರ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಪತ್ರನ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಏನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ತಗೊಬೇಕು ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾರು ಏನು ಕೇಳಿಲ್ಲ. ಲೋಕಾಯುಕ್ತದವರು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಡಿಯಿಂದ ಆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ನಮ್ಗೇನು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ.
Chief Minister Siddaramaiah alleged a political conspiracy against his family and rejected all calls for his resignation.
ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಕರಣದಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ರೋಲ್ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ನನಗೆ ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿ ಪತ್ರ.
The Congress rallied behind the Chief Minister, accusing the centre of using central agencies against opposition leaders.
पहले दिन से 25 मई 2023 से प्रयास किया जा रहा है नई दिल्ली से कि कर्नाटक की सरकार को किसी तरह से हिलाए, अस्थिर बनाए, कीचड़ फेंके, केस दर्ज करें, इनकम टैक्स, CBI और अब ED. ये धमकी है, डराने की कोशिश है, और जैसा कि मैंने कहा पहले में ही, ये प्रतिशोध, उत्पीड़न और बदलाव की राजनीति है.
The BJP mocked Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, calling him U-turn Ramaiah. The party also released a spoof and put out posters targeting the Chief Minister, reiterating the party's demand for his resignation.
The decision of giving back or surrendering sites, that itself is an admission of guilt, since Chief Minister Siddaramaiah is bound to face the investigation. Probably Siddaramaiah has taken the decision of surrendering back the sites. But by surrendering back the sites, I don't think the legal hurdle will stop. He is bound to face the legal hurdle.
The petitioner in the MUDA scam is demanding a detailed investigation into the allegations.
ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಹೋರಾಟಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಜಯ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥದ್ದು. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಗಳು ನ್ಯಾಯ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಇವತ್ತು ಕೂಡ ಯಾವುದೇ ಪುರಾವೆ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯಗಳಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಸುಳ್ಳು ಆರೋಪಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ.
The opposition had slammed Chief Minister Siddaramaiah on this particular decision, calling that this is a pure admission of guilt. By returning these sites, it clearly shows that Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has admitted that he is part of irregularities. The bigger question is, it is too late for Chief Minister Siddaramaiah to do this damage control. With video journalist Shivmurthy, Sagairaj reporting for India Today, Bengaluru.
I want to bring in India Today Sagairaj, who's been tracking this story very, very closely. Sagai, the fact that Siddaramaiah has got his wife, who remains completely out of the public eye, to very dramatically announce that she is returning the land, that doesn't appear to have created any kind of public splash, because most people are wondering, why return the land if there is nothing to hide?
Absolutely, and in fact there are larger questions which have been asked, that why so late, why they hadn't done this particular exercise probably 3 months back, when this allegations against Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and his wife has unearthed in the city of Bengaluru. And if you notice that his wife had categorically mentioned that she doesn't want to embarrass her husband at any point of time, whether it is politically or personally, and that is the reason they are trying to return this particular 14 sites. On the other side, Chief Minister Siddaramaiah says that she has not consulted him, but still she had gone ahead and written this letter and written the sites which was being allocated them as a compensation site from the Kesaru village. The question is, why the damage control after such a long time? but they are hell-bent that they will continue the legal battle in the court on allegations made against them.
Sagai, thanks very much for getting us that report. We'll keep a track of it. The Lokayukta investigation has begun. The Enforcement Directorate has also begun its own investigation. It's registered a case against Siddaramaiah. We'll have to see where this actually goes. It's the big one in Karnataka. Meanwhile, remember there's an election on currently in Haryana, and guess who the Election Commission and the Haryana government have given parole for the third time this year, just so he can play his role in this election. It is India's #1 rapist murderer, Dera Sacha Sauda chief, this joker, Gurmeet Singh. Ram Rahim, as he's called, which is frankly quite an insult, gets parole yet again before the Haryana elections. The Election Commission on Monday, the shameless, soulless, bloodless Election Commission on Monday, approved the parole petition of this rapist, murder convict, Dera Sacha Sauda chief Gurmeet Ram Rahim Singh. Well, during the parole time, Ram Rahim will be prohibited from entering Haryana and barred from participating in any election campaign activities, either in person or via social media, which is a bit of a joke because the Election Commission of India makes people want to think that someone with the power and reach of this rapist convict, rape and murder convict, cannot talk to his supporters and cannot influence votes even while sitting in Bagpat in Uttar Pradesh. With the Election Commission's approval in place, the BJP government in Haryana is expected to soon issue an order for his release. Remember, it will be the third time he's gotten parole just this year. He got it in January, he got it in August, and now he'll be getting it in October. Ram Rahim has been granted 259 days of temporary parole release since 2020. And curiously, all of the times have been just before some election or the other, whether it is a by-poll in Punjab, whether it is the Haryana polls, whether it is Panchayat polls, whether it is by-polls in UP, whether it is the Lok Sabha polls. All of his paroles have been timed with some election or the other. Ram Rahim holds significant influence in regions like Sirsa, Hisar, Fatehabad and other districts of Haryana, where he has a large following base.
वो पैरोल के नियम है, नियमों के मुताबिक ही दी होगी। विपक्ष सवाल उठा रहा है तो नियमों को तब्दील करवा दे।
So there are strictures that the Election Commission has put down, barring this rape murder convict from entering Haryana, etc. But take a look at where Gurmeet Singh has a lot of influence. He wields a great deal of influence in the Sirsa, Ambala, Kurukshetra, Hisar belt of Haryana. And the Haryana election is in 3 days. So, you do the math. He can influence the poll outcome in at least 36 seats in Haryana. He's been barred from entering Haryana. But who says he can't conduct virtual meetings and conduct virtual speeches and sammelans to speak to voters? The Dera commands huge influence among Dalits. Dalits in Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan are all Dera Sacha Sauda followers. Dera Sangats inform followers how to actually vote, and these Sangats have thousands of people in attendance, and that's probably why this rape murder convict has been released. The Dera influence may have declined after Ram Rahim's conviction, but it is by no means small, and it certainly hasn't disappeared. Repeated paroles seen as a bid to woo Dera Sacha Sauda followers in order to vote for the BJP. Let's go across to India Today. Is Manjeet Sehgal joining us live from Chandigarh. Manjeet, the Election Commission has shamelessly, put its stamp of approval on parole for Gurmeet Singh. What is the Haryana government doing? Have they signed off? Is it done?
Well, Shiv, as you said, every time there is an election, be it Haryana, be it Punjab, be it Himachal Pradesh, Gurmeet Ram Rahim, or the Dera Sacha Sauda chief, gets a parole or a furlough. And this time, third time, as you said. I remember since 2020, he has been released as much as 15 times and has got furlough or parole 279 days. So Gurmeet Ram Rahim's paroles and furloughs have been questioned by the opposition parties. Congress besides the Anshul Chhatrapati, son of slain journalist Ramchandra Chhatrapati, besides the Shirmani Gurudwara Pramodak Committee, have appealed the Election Commission of India to cancel this parole, as the opposition fears that he might influence the voters. Though there is a rider, he cannot visit Haryana, he may not be able to use the social media and will be stationed at Sarsawa Ashram. But still, there is a political wing in the Dera Sacha Sada headquarters which decides whom to vote, whom not, on that too, on the directions of Gurmeet Ram Rahim. As far as the Bharatiya Janata Party leaders are concerned, they say this is not politically motivated. He has got parole and furloughs as per the laws, as per the provisions available in the Haryana jails manual. The affinity of how he can influence the voters through his followers is that his followers are spread over nearly 3 dozen constituencies in Haryana, and these followers believe in Gurmeet Ram Rahim. The Haryana government,
the election commission, which has been petitioned by the opposition, to cancel approval. It's a bit of a joke, because at the end of the day, it's the election commission that actually put its stamp of approval on providing parole, and now the matter is in the hands of the Chief Minister of Haryana, Naim Singh Saini of the BJP, and it doesn't look like he's going to be refusing that parole. That is the state of things in this country. A rape murder convict gets parole 3 times. He has spent a third of his jail time just this year outside jail. 18% of his entire prison sentence since 2020 has been spent on parole. Just some data for you to think about.